Bet365. We are part of the Volume Podcast Network. I am Chad Millman, Chief Content Officer of the Action Network. That's right. I said Volume Podcast Network. For those listeners of the show, longtime listeners of the show, you may remember we were on the Volume when the Volume and Colin Cowherd first launched the show or the network in 2021. We love being partners with the Volume. We were partners with them for 2 years. I am still and have always been on Colin's Sharper Square segment on his show on the Volume every Thursday, Friday during the NFL season. We're back on the Volume Network after a brief hiatus. We love our friends at the Volume. We're so excited to be back with them and to also be bringing back the #1 sports betting show in America. For those who are new, you are now part of our crew. I am joined, as I always am, by my co-host, my companion, my compadre, professional bettor, Simon Hunter. Hello, Simon.
Hello, Chad. Another week closer to the start of the season, brother.
And listen, what we want to do is get to the season again. For those who are new and haven't heard us before, because you've been tuning in to the Volume, we will go through the next 6 weeks, every division. We will talk about season win totals. We will talk about odds to win the division. We will talk about odds to win the Super Bowl, where we think the value is for every team. Once we get into the season, the way this works, Simon and I will do a show on Tuesday in which we break down every single game, our leans, the games we like, the games we're interested in, the games that we're going to do a little more work for. On Thursday, we give everybody what will likely be our 5 favorite picks that we will put into our free-to-play $100,000 prize pool pick'em contest that all of you are welcome to enter. We will announce that in the coming weeks once we get closer to the season and everything is set up. You will get to join. Again, free to play. You will have the chance to win $100,000, to be part of a $100,000 prize pool. I think last year, first prize got like $40,000. Producer Matt Mitchell can keep me honest on that. But Simon and I put those picks in every week. So what happens is you get to compete against me and Simon in the contest on Sunday nights, before the NFL game on Sunday night, after the late games in that 7:30 p.m. Eastern window. Simon and I will do a quick show. We will talk about our early leans for the next week, and we will also review the heartbreak and the triumph of how we did with our 5 picks and where we stand in the contest. I'm looking forward to all of you joining us for the ride. And by the way, joining the contest. Last year, we had 12,000 people sign up for the contest. So super excited to run it back this year. Today, me and Simon are going to be discussing the NFC South. Over the next few weeks, we're going to have tons of guests. We're going to have Field Yates from ESPN is going to come on the show. Warren Sharp, Sharp Football Analysis, is going to come on the show. Today, they're going to help us break down some divisions, plus talent from the Action Network. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Also, if you're a college sports fan of any kind, you got to check out our college sports betting brand on YouTube. That's BBOC. We've launched our very own YouTube channel that is BBOC only. You will get early access to our BBOC pods including our college football conference betting previews, live shows, exclusive content. Subscribe now for free by clicking the link in this episode description. All right, here we go. We're going to talk about the NFC South. Most people would say, I don't want to talk about this division. You got the Falcons, who have Kirk Cousins coming back, joining the team, coming back from an Achilles tear. You got the Saints, who are middling and uninteresting. You got the Bucs, who are middling and uninteresting. You got the Panthers, who might be one of the worst teams in the league. But that's not how Simon and I feel. Because sometimes you got to do bad things if you want to win bets. I will remind people, 19 of the past 21 seasons, an NFL team has gone from worst to first in its division. The Texans did it last year in the AFC South. The Bucs did it last year in the NFC South. Guys, I mean, Simon, Panthers right now, Panthers are plus 1,100 to win the division, 250 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. Their season win total is 4.5. I will say for this entire division, I just outlined like what people think about this division. That's what the markets think as well. The Falcons, Panthers, Saints, and Bucs have a combined win total of 30. That is the fewest for any division by more than 3 wins this year. Normally, we'll talk about the teams from the top to the bottom. I feel like we got to talk about the Panthers because we have Sean Kerner, who is one of our best analysts, who created the luck rankings, which is one of the best metrics we follow to find advantages and opportunities and how the market is not judging teams correctly. Talked about on the show a couple weeks ago. Said the Panthers were the most unlucky team last year. We bet the Panthers so often last year. Our second place contest winner bet him so often that he came in second place and still has nightmares. Talk me off a ledge about the Panthers because you know I love everything about them right now.
No, I can't. I mean, that number is too extreme just because of all the hate they've gotten in sports media and everything like that. And we talk all the time how much the NFL is driven by the sports media narrative. And I, for 6 months, yelling from rooftops, could not wrap my head around Bryce Young being our first round pick. I kept saying anyone that's not, in bed with all these agents or in bed with Nick Saban, Alabama, they have a second round grade in this kid. He is 5'10, 5'11, 180 on a good day. Like, that's just the reason you've never seen it before in the NFL is there's a reason, right? It's like, can the guy see the middle of the field? Can he make passes over his offensive line to the middle of the field? I mean, it sounds crazy. Last year, he could not. Like, he could not. And even when he could do it, his teammates were just letting him down consistently. Like, he just did not have the guys. And, they've tried to address that stuff in this draft, right? They went out and got a wide receiver. I don't know if that's going to be that big of a change, but what me and Chad are talking about is they've improved the offensive line, which was where they needed to start. That's where they needed to take that money from this rookie contract. They have all this money to spend. That's where they invested it because they know this defense – it's a 2-3 year rebuild, right? That defense is not going to be rebuilt overnight. They already had too many holes going into last season. They've traded away Brian Burns, one of their best players by far, because they need to keep improving, right? This team needs a lot of things. That he was not going to fix all the issues out defensively. So, do me and Chad really think this team's going to win this division? Most likely not. But we've seen crazier things, right? Like we just talked about Houston, like a couple games bounce your ways, and a couple teams in this division they struggle towards the end of the year. We're talking about 11-1 ticket here on this them divisionally. Me and Chad will be able to take a position in the final 2 weeks to either hedge this bet or if we believe in it, which unfortunately we probably will because we like this Panther team, that's going to be the reason. So people kept asking, like, how can you preach taking the Panthers this year when you spent so much time last year shitting on Bryce Young? That was different. That was really just me talking about how I just knew for a fact their GM didn't make that pick. And then it slowly came out that it was their owner that kind of stepped in and made the pick on Bryce Young. So we've kind of moved on from that point. I think last year was really about the coaching, the players. Everyone was just going through it, and there was just nothing left in that team. Where this year, they are feeling pretty good. I mean, I've seen a couple of the beat writers talking about, like, there is a different vibe and a different sense around this team and coming into the season. So, yeah, if you're if you're like, you know what, I don't really want to invest heavily into this team. Do what we mean, Chad, talking about taking the divisional bet, but how do you not bet the over 4.5? Like, even just talking about their division and the fact they have a last place schedule, I really do feel like they're going to hit this number, people. Like, they're not as bad as you perceive there. They beat Houston last year, a team we're raving about right now. This team did beat Houston. Like, they do have guys on this team that can make plays and they can step up. Even Green Bay Packers, I think the Packers did beat them, but Bryce Young put up over 30 points against that Packers defense. Like, we saw moments, we saw flashes. I just really don't think they had the coaching last year. I don't even know if they have the coaching this year, but I know it's gonna be better than what it was last year. I can guarantee you, because last year I feel like the guys totally quit on the guys who were running that team. Where this year, I just don't get that sense at all. So, yeah, like I'm telling you, of all the lowest win total teams, a lot of the guys I get the under. Like, I took Tennessee's under, which I usually don't on totals that low. You have to take the over on this one. I got this one model at 6 wins. That's at a game and a half of value right here. Like, that's a nice wide range of value here. That it factors in what we talked about with Sean, the bad luck, right? That they had last year. We got to see some of that even out, right? It's just probability we're playing here. So I know, hold your nose, people. It's a gross one, but divisional odds at this number, you got to take it. Over 4.5 wins, you got to take it. Super Bowl odds, don't waste your money. Do not waste your money on the Super Bowl odds. There's no chance. I don't care how big of a step Bryce Young takes. I have them so far behind as a team. Just because, again, I told you they're rebuilding that defense. So divisional win total, that's where you're gonna get the best bang for your buck.
Yeah. The strength of their schedule is 10th easiest. Again, things that we look at for those who are new to the show. We talk a lot about offensive and defensive line as how we're trying to find value, because when the market is creating numbers, whether it's odds to win the Super Bowl or season win totals, or even during the season, favorites, underdogs, etc., a lot of times it doesn't account for offensive and defensive line. The reason why professional bettors spend the preseason watching every snap of the game is because they want to know in week 5 if the backup guard is playing,
Yeah.
what kind of impact is that going to have on the game and the team. What happens from the inside out is so important for betting generally. So we will look at strength of schedule, and that is based on the aggregate season win total number for the teams that the team we are talking about is playing for the upcoming season, in this case 2024. We will look at the offensive line rank according to Pro Football Focus, which I love their offensive line ranks and how they grade players, and their defensive line rank. So again, according to Pro Football Focus. Strength of schedule for Carolina, 10th easiest this year. Again, speaks to the power of betting the over 4.5. Offensive line rank, 20, and that is with big investments in free agency. Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt, who is a very highly rated offensive lineman according to Pro Football Focus. And like you said, they traded away Brian Burns, one of the best edge rushers in the league. Their defensive line rank is 29. They're basically starting from scratch.
Yeah.
With this unit. But as I said, betting means doing bad things, right? And so let me give you some stats about how disgusting it is that we are spending as much time as we are talking about the Carolina Panthers, who we love so much. We loved going back to last year because they were so undervalued in the market. Carolina Panthers have the longest Super Bowl odds of any team entering this season at 250 to 1. It's the first time since 2005, 2006, San Francisco 49ers, that a team that picked number 1 in the NFL draft, so last season they picked number 1, Bryce Young, and had the worst Super Bowl odds the following season. So nobody thinks they got any better. And there's reasons for that, right? They haven't covered a spread in which they were favored since 2021, almost 3 full seasons. Last year, they averaged just 4.1 yards per offensive play. That was the worst mark for any team since the Bengals in 2008. Their 4.1 yards per offensive play was the 3rd lowest for any team since 1990. Almost 35 years. They didn't snap a ball last year while leading in the 4th quarter of a single game. The first time that's happened in the wild card era again since 1990. Are you ready for me to tell you the good news, Simon?
Yes.
Because right now it feels like, how could we be telling anybody how much we love the Carolina Panthers? And by the way, we do love them at 11-1. We do love the over 4.5. One more for you. How bad was Bryce Young last year?
I mean, awful.
No,
Worse
how
than the
bad was
league.
he? How bad was he?
Worse than the league.
No, you're supposed to ask me, how bad was
Oh, how
he?
bad was he?
Only three quarterbacks in NFL history have had 11 pass touchdowns or less, 10 interceptions or more, and less than 60% completion percentage with 50 plus sacks. Bryce Young, Blake Bortles, David Carr. Do you or do you not feel less confident thinking about all this and then picturing Bryce Young walking into camp with a backpack that made him look like he was entering his first day of kindergarten?
But again, it goes back to how stupid football is. You just talked about Blake Bortles. I mean, 3 years later, he almost beat Tom Brady, almost played the Eagles in the Super Bowl. And then 2 years after that, he was out of the league. So it is a crazy sport where these guys just they can find it and they're right for a couple of years and then it's just gone. And I don't think any of us sitting here would be shocked if Bryce Young is out of the league in 4 or 5 years, or if he does somehow get a next contract. But it's just we talk all the time about the butterfly effect in this league, and Lovie Smith didn't quit on his team in Houston, made them play it out. They somehow fought tooth and nail, got the second pick overall, which gave Carolina the chance to trade up to Chicago to get their number one pick. And what they do, they took Bryce Young, Houston, who did all the right things, didn't try to tank. They got their guy CJ number two, and that's just how it is in football. It's like those bizarre things. They're all connected. And now the following year, instead of you guys having the 25th pick or 24th pick, what Houston's picking now, which is what Carolina's pick probably would have been, because again, they would have had CJ and probably would have won their division and been a playoff team. You guys had the number one pick and you got a generational talent in Chicago. So we talk all the time about all these different things that are connected. And that's how I feel with Carolina. It's like last year couldn't have got any worse. It was all so negative, and they put him in such a position to fail. I mean, their best receiver, if you go look at it, it was Adam Thielen. And this guy is like a day away from retiring. That's how bad of a team they were. This guy was able to be by far their best offensive weapon. It's just not going to be that way this year. I just do have faith that Bryce Young was all in his head last year, and this year they feel free and loose. And again, the B Raiders are saying they've looked better so far since the camps have started. So that's what me and Chad are putting faith in, is that they just had the season from hell, had crazy bad luck. Now they've added pieces that this team, again, we're not talking Super Bowl here, but can they get to 6, 7 wins? I think they can. Could they shock the world and get to 9-8 and somehow win this division like Tampa did last year? I think things could break that way, but it's also, again, we're about to go through these other teams here. All these other teams, they have their own warts here. So that's why this division to me feels like it's wide open rather than, 11-1, Chad, to win this division. That just feels so extreme.
Yeah, I think that's why we're convincing ourselves here. I think there's three things in play. Number one, how badly they did last year. Things can't go that badly again. It's almost statistically impossible. Everybody in betting is always going to bet the bounce back, right? We're buying at the lowest part of the market for the Carolina Panthers across multiple markets, especially when it comes to season win totals at 4.5 and to win the division at 11-1. We like the fact that they were so incredibly unlucky last season, as Kerner pointed out, Sean Kerner, the unluckiest team in the NFL per our luck rankings. Let me give you a couple stats from one of our other brilliant analysts. You can listen to him on the Action Network podcast, Chris Raybon. Win totals, these are going to make us feel better. Win totals for teams that won 4 or fewer games in the prior season are a 58% to the over the past 22 years. Win totals for teams that won 4 or fewer games in the prior season and then hired a new head coach, 59% the last 20 years. Win totals for teams with first-time head coaches to the over are 57% since 2002. Win totals for teams that won 4 or fewer games in the prior season and then hired a first-time head coach, 67% since 2002. So I like that we are betting on them to go over because all of the trends say they will do better, from whether it's luck, whether it's bottom of the market, whether it's the season win total betting data that we have from the past 20 years.
Love it.
Panthers, 11-1. Panthers over 4.5. If nobody takes anything else from this show, that's what they have to take. But look, Atlanta is also a really intriguing team, and Atlanta has, according to their opponents' win totals, the easiest schedule in the NFL. They have one of the best offensive lines, top 10 ranked offensive line, number 8. Drew Dahlman, their center, one of Pro Football Focus's highest rated run blocking centers, and Chris Lidstrom, highest rated overall guard. Great offensive line. Defensive line is ranked 28th. They last had a player with 10 sacks in 2016, Vic Beasley. Since 2017, is the only team in the NFL without a 10-sack season by any player. The key here is Kirk Cousins. Does he come back from the Achilles injury or not?
Yeah, and I thought he wasn't going to come back this soon. Like, I made a bet on Penix. I think it was 80-1 or 75-1 to be rookie of the year. And it was simply taking a position of, okay, say this kid Penix starts weeks 1 through 3 and they're 3-0 or they're 2-1 and he's playing well. Do you think they really put Kirk in over this kid? I don't think they do. It's a business at the end of the day. And the business plan is find the rookie contract, right? And their view of it was, I talked about it last year. They tried moving to get a quarterback last year, and it just did not work out, right? So they rolled with it, and they realized quickly we've just wasted an entire season of this organization. And their owner is one of the older owners in the league, and I think he came down to them and said, listen, I just want a quarterback that I can trust in. Go get me Kirk. They go get Kirk, and then they watch Penix's film. They fall in love with him. I mean, I was shocked by it. Chad was shocked. I think Johnny Manziel was the only person in the world not shocked by him going at number 8, which is the truth. Like, I had a high grade in the kid, but he does have some warts. But it's like Chad just talked about it. You give him a great offensive line and weapons, Penix is going to thrive. Like, that's the perfect setup for this kid. And, you know, Kirk, we're going to see, because Kirk isn't Aaron Rodgers. He's never been Aaron Rodgers. Even at Kirk's best, right? We've always viewed him as a top 12, top 15 guy, because he has these moments where he's a top 8 guy, but then the next game he's just back to the old Kirk, right? Back to tons of turnovers or just making bonehead plays. And that's the issue with Kirk Cousins. He's never been consistent his whole career. And, you know, he's done great. He's done really well, right? A couple 10-win seasons. Him and the Vikings had that incredible run where they won their division. And me and Chad were just like, this team are frauds, right? And the Giants, sure enough, went into Minnesota. They beat them in the playoffs. And that's kind of how I feel about Kirk, where it's like, you know, if I won 10 wins, healthy Kirk, if I got offensive weapons around him, he's going to get me to 10 wins. Like, that's why it's hard to badmouth Kirk, because he has been so much better than all these other guys, but we don't know what we're getting right now. I read the other day about a beat writer talking about how he's still not pushing off that foot, right? He's still doing quick throws. He's not really cranking out the hard throws out to the outs, right? He's not putting all of his weight into it and throwing deep balls yet. It's like he's really being careful and tender with it. Where Aaron Rodgers, I just watched him in the Jets practice. He's got no restrictions. He's all over the place, moving, throwing on the run, putting all of his weight onto it, stepping into it. I mean, he's got no worries right now with that Achilles. So that's the caution tale here is you are betting a minus 20 favorite divisional bet right now on a team with a guy that we are so unsure of, and a defense that I think they're a bottom 25, bottom 27, you know, defense. Like, they're really projected low in my model. So offensively, I get why people are so enamored with this team. It's just they have, you know, a top 3 running back, and Drake London on the outside is a great receiver. And Kyle Pitts, we know he's a great tight end. He's just never had a quarterback get him the ball. And what does Kirk Cousins love? He loves a good tight end. So, like, we should see growth there. But it's like there's so many questions here where I mean, we've had guests on who were like, yeah, Atlanta's a slam dunk. And it's like, how can you feel that way about this team? Like, they do have so many questions in a division we talk all the time is really wonky. And Chad said they had the easiest schedule. They had the second easiest schedule in all of football last year, and the Saints had number one. Neither of them made the playoffs. Tampa, who we just left for dead, they were the team that took care of their easy schedule and were able to make the playoff run. So that's my issue with Atlanta is be cautious, people. 30-1 Super Bowl odds. You are crazy if you're betting them 30-1 to win Super Bowl. I mean, that's insane. Like they should be like the Jaguars. They should be 50-1, but maybe they don't have that low of just because people are like, well, if they win the division, they'll be the fourth seed. They'll get a home game. It's just, is there a home field advantage to Atlanta? I don't know. It's been so long since they've had any type of really big fan base. I mean, even the Matt Ryan run, I guess the last time, I guess, is 2016. It was when the last time they were really like that. So just be careful, people. They're a team I've taken their under. I have them projected 9-8. Again, half a game. Not putting that much money on it, but it's like, yeah, they to me have too many questions to be a team that's minus 120 for this division and have an over of 9.5. It's just too much faith in this team right now. So they feel like an easy fade, but at the same time, me and Chad won't be shocked if they win this division. They clearly have the best offense in this division. So wouldn't be shocked by it, but I would be shocked if their defense were able to get them wins. It just feels like once again, it's all falling on Kirk Cousins, which we've seen before, usually doesn't end well for his teams.
Yeah, Simon mentioned it 30-1 to win the Super Bowl, minus 120 to win the division, 9.5 is the season win total. None of that is attractive, right?
No.
There's so many question marks with this team. It's why, honestly, it's why Carolina looks so much more interesting because
Right.
you can so clearly see the upside and the opportunity. Atlanta, like, it just feels like you're not getting any value in
Anything.
this.
Yeah, it feels like it's all built into the max level. It's like it's just been totally bet out, priced out.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like it's exactly where it should be. They're the most nondescript team, the whole division, right? Like we've always talked about this. Like the NFC South and the AFC South, they just don't have any like great legacy fandom.
They do. You say this every time. I told you the Colts have it because of Peyton. They do.
I don't know, man. Like they're all sort of the Colts are the only one, only because they came from Baltimore, right? So like
Yeah,
the
Johnny
logo at
Unitas.
least feels familiar.
That's
There's
true.
nobody outside of the Southeast who's wearing a Jaguars logo, who's thinking about the Atlanta Falcons. Like nobody gives a shit about these teams anywhere.
I
Like
mean, they had the Mike Vick thing was a culture thing, right? I'll never forget. You saw those sevens jerseys everywhere, but
that's true.
I
That's
do
true.
agree with you that like even when we talk about it, sometimes I yawn a little bit where it's like, man, AFC South, it's brutal.
Like Matt Ryan was the perfect quarterback for a team. Like you kind of never knew his personality. He kind of wasn't that flashy. He just ended up having a lot of yards in a stadium that always felt really quiet. Quiet yardage for quiet fans. That's how I think about the Atlanta Falcons. Sorry to say it. The
Yeah, and
Carolina
that's that.
Panthers,
I was gonna say that's with Matt Ryan having Roddy White and then Julio Jones, like two Hall of Fame
Carolina
receivers.
Panthers, Simon, they're getting ready to roar. See what I did there?
That was all that for
Uh,
that.
all right. Tampa Bay Buccaneers made the playoffs last year. Baker Mayfield, he made us
Whew.
some money. 80-1 to win the Super Bowl this year, plus 320 to win the division. 9.5 is the win total. They also, I mean, the theme for this division is easy schedule, mainly because they all play each other and none of the teams had a very good record. So 11th easiest schedule, middle of the pack offensive line at 17, middle of the pack defensive line at 20. Not seeing a lot that lights my fire here.
Yeah, my biggest issue is they've lost their offensive coordinator, who I thought did so much. I mean, as much as McVay did for, bringing back, a quarterback that we left for dead now in Baker, to now he got paired up with a perfect OC with the best weapons he could ask for on the outside to that offense coordinator has left. So now he needs to learn another new playbook, which is going to be a lot to put on Baker. And then you add the expectations now because he did get paid. This is the team that did win the division last year. It's all there. Like we're all betting on regression. Like how can you not think regression is gonna happen with this team? So I owned it last year. This was a team that I missed on in the preseason. I couldn't get behind Baker. Plenty of professionals I talked to, they like this team. They went heavy on them week one against the Minnesota Vikings. I think they were like a 5-point dog. They went outright, and me and Chad were both looking at each other and saying, "Hey, how about this Bucks team?" We still didn't took a little while to come around, and by midseason, we're like, "This is the best team in this division." Like this does feel like there is a separation here between them, Atlanta, and the Saints. And as the season went along, it was like big win. I mean, one of the biggest wins they had. They went on the road and beat the crap out of Green Bay, and it was like, wow, like this team can really put up some numbers when the offense is clicking. And then even the playoffs. I mean, say what you want about the Eagles beating themselves, they dominated them. Like they looked
Yeah.
like they bullied them in that whole game. And even when they Detroit, Baker just had an off game, right? That was the difference in that Detroit game where Baker just didn't have it that day. When he doesn't have it, he really does not have it, Baker. Like that was his whole rub. Even when he was in Cleveland on the Browns, they complained about him being inconsistent. That's where like they went out and made a stupid move to go get Deshaun Watson because they just want a top level consistency where, you know, Baker just had stuff to work out, right? That's the key with Baker is that he's never going to be that number one pick where we just assume he was going to be, right? Like he was just so incredible coming out of college. And last year we saw a glimpse of it. I mean, even me and you talked about it. We're just like, this guy, I remember we did a film breaking him down. He was just getting the crack picked out of him. I think he had gone 0 for 5 passing. And again, I'm talking about this OC. He went right back to it. The next series they went out there, the coach threw 3 straight passing plays, and Baker drove him down the field and won the game for them to obviously win this division. So I understand why people are kind of hesitant to bet this team now because Chad just said they have the 10th easiest schedule. They still have they still have the division winning schedule, right? That means they have to play the other 3 divisional winners. That's a big deal, right? Like instead of playing, the Giants or Washington, they're going to play Dallas, and it's like that does matter when you bring into win totals. So I'm a little shocked. The books got them at 9.5 as well. This team I have graded out 8 wins, so technically I'm supposed to really love this under, but I'm not loving it. Like I just have such faith in Mike Evans and Godwin. It's like even with Baker losing to OC, it's like he has 2 all pros, 1 Hall of Famer on the other side, and Mike Evans. Like they're all there. Like they can somehow make this work and figure it out. My issue is I can't see that right now because we're so early into this preseason. Like I don't know what their offensive style is going to look like. I don't even know. Like I don't know if it was their right tackle or their left tackle. Somebody's holding out right now. If he leaves, I think it was Worth, right? That's a huge deal to that team. Like that guy's an all pro at their tackle. That is a really big deal. So I hate to do this and say you just don't put any action on this one right now, but I wouldn't touch the win total yet unless you want to go towards the under because that's what I'm going towards, and I would not touch the divisional odds.
Yeah, the 9.5, it feels way too high.
That's
Like
what it doesn't make sense.
it
It
doesn't
does
make
not make
sense. Like
sense.
this should be at 8.5.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
there's other divisions where, like, look at the Colts, right? The Colts are at 8.5. Obviously, the division's a little bit harder. You got the Texans.
Yeah,
Everyone expects to be better, to be one of the best teams in the league. You got the Jags who will improve. So you can see why the win total is at 8.5. But the Colts are also a better team. The division odds, excuse me, are pretty close to the same. And this team's at 9.5. It's because of the schedule and because of the division. I don't like the reason they got to the wins they got last year because Baker had a stretch where he just wasn't throwing any interceptions. And like, I don't know that we can believe in that again.
no, like
Right.
are they
And
really
also,
going
you
ten and
mentioned,
seven? That's why I can't believe Vegas is saying they're like, yeah, we
yeah,
think this is a 10-17 because if you look at right now, it's juiced to the under. They've just been getting pounded to the under by the pros, so that's why I'm right there with Chad. It's like I wanted to load up on this, but I'm not gonna lie, it's scaring me a little bit because they have not moved that number. It's been getting hit, and they've just held the 9.5.
the new offensive coordinator, Dave Canales, who was the offensive coordinator, he's now the new head coach in Carolina. And the new
Yeah,
offensive
and
coordinator,
that's another reason we didn't even talk about. I really like the Panthers. Like I just think this guy was incredible with Baker last year. So
he
thank you
was.
for bringing that up.
Yeah, he was great with Baker last year, and we should have talked about that with the Panthers. But and look, that team, like what they got rid of with Frank Reich last year and moving on to a new guy with a fresh approach, like it just makes sense. The new offense coordinator for the Bucks is Liam Cohn, who has 1 season as an offensive coordinator. Of course, you shake Sean McVay's hand and you're going to get another opportunity to be a big coordinator or head coach. And he was a coordinator for the Rams for one season in 2022, but he's basically spent his career in college, right? Like he was at Kentucky last year. And then like had been assistant coaches in Maine, UMass, Rhode Island, everything around, within an hour of my house. Um, so a lot of questions here. A lot of
Yeah.
questions with the Bucks.
Too many questions to be taken over a 9.5. Just one of the more bizarre win totals of the season.
Too many questions to even talk about them anymore. Let's talk about the New Orleans Saints, who we can't stand. Talk about a
Uh,
team that has just fallen off the face of the earth that we used to love, that had so much personality with Sean Payton. Now you got Dennis Allen, 100-1 to win the Super Bowl, plus 340 to win the division. At least like their win total is in line with what we thought it should have been last year. They're at 7.5. But this team, like they were bad last year. They've gotten worse. They got the fifth easiest schedule. Not sure it matters. Their offensive line rank 32. Their defensive line rank 24. I can recite all the stats about Dennis Allen. We hate betting on Dennis Allen. We hate betting on Derek Carr, especially as a favorite. I'll get into it, but do I need to? Because you're not going to tell me there's opportunity on the New Orleans Saints.
I'm gonna try not to. Obviously, in this division, like Chad just said, anything can happen, right? But all signs point to this being a dead team. Like it's just a remnants of a great empire that's just slowly burning. It's like the end of the Roman Empire. It's just there's a couple of beautiful buildings left in there, right? There are a couple of guys left over from it, but overall they're all aging out now. And even, you know, Olave, who I think is one of the better receivers in football, he doesn't move the needle. Like there's nothing he could do to really make you kind of get confidence in this team. So yeah, someone that's probably one of the last Derek Carr believers. They didn't do a single thing in this offseason that improved their team substantially. Like I just don't know what they spend money on. They spent money on a tight end quarterback, right? Like they have all these weird signings on this team that just don't really make any sense. Why not try to attack and improve the offensive line when you know that's such a huge weakness? It's just I don't know what the ownership's doing, and their hands are tied because they've spent money on such weird players and they've built this weird team where it's like they're stuck. So, I got them graded out 7 wins, 7.5. That means I'm going towards the under. And that feels right, especially when we're talking about we think the Panthers are going to be much better than last year. Like that, those were easy wins last year for some of these teams in this division. They're not going to have that with the Panthers, right? We think they'll be improved. So, the Saints are another team that I put a little bit of money on them for worst record, and you can shop around. I saw a couple 17-1s, 18-1s on them to have the worst record, and it's just because of that. Where again, I hate the bad mouth Derek Carr because I think he got a raw deal overall in his career. But we've seen him just be so inconsistent. And every time he has to learn a new offense, he regresses. And right now, it's looking that way that they're going to be installing a whole new offense. And Chad talked about it. Like the elephant in the room is the head coach. And I knew he was bad, right? I think historically, Evan tells us every week he is the worst head coach in the history of NFL against the
I'll give you
spread.
the stat. I'll give you
Please.
the stat. Uh, so in his career, 24-46 straight up. That's worst among all active head coaches. In just 5 years and 70 games of coaching, Allen is 22 games below 500. There is only, here's the list of the only coaches since 2002 realignment to have 70 games or less under their belt and be 22 games below 500. Dennis Allen, Fritz Shermer, Hugh Jackson, Steve Spagnuolo, and Gus Bradley. He's a historically bad coach. He just is. There's no name one thing that Dennis Allen brings to the table as a coach that would get fans excited, that would scare teams. Like, you've got something when you're going against Kyle Shanahan. You got something against Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, right? Mike Tomlin, you got something. John Harbaugh, you got something. No one's thinking, I got to out scheme Dennis Allen.
And go listen to some of his interviews. He is awful at interviews, and he says things that you put your hands in your head in your hand. You're just going, what is this guy even talking about? So, I'm right there with Chad. And then the big thing that stuck out to me was when we talked about the luck rankings and the luck wins. We kind of narrowed in that like Tomlin, people are perceiving him as lucky, and it's like no, you kind of can see that he's a great coach. That's why he's going over his win total and getting more wins than people project because he's such a great
Exactly
coach. Now
right.
Dennis Allen, that team should have had 11 wins last year. Like I mean, people can't wrap their heads around how crazy that is, but it's like this man took 2 wins away from this team. That's how bad he was at being a head coach. And again, they're another team. Their ownership to me is to blame for everything that's gone wrong with this team. Like they've totally fallen asleep at the wheel since they won the Super Bowl years ago. They leaned on having a Hall of Fame quarterback and a Hall of Fame head coach. And like I said, this is the remnants of it. Like it's a dying empire. It's just tons of trash left over. Like there's just nothing left really good here. And they feel like a classic team that's gonna be rebuilding for 5 to 8 years until they find the next quarterback and then kind of start building around him. It's just really bad right now. So I'm shocked to say that, but yeah, you got to go the under at 7.5.
To bring it full circle, you talked a little bit about Derek Carr and his struggles. Derek Carr is 500 against the spread or worse as a favorite in 7 straight seasons since 2017. Again, from Evan Abrams. 46, 62, and 3 against the spread. Since his first season in the NFL, 2014, he's ranked 165th of 166 quarterbacks as a favorite. He's ahead of one player who was worse as a quarterback. 166 out of 166.
But
We just mentioned him in this podcast as
David Carr,
nope, as the definition of uninspiring, high volume yardage, playing in a quiet stadium where nobody cares.
Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan.
But this is why I do defend Derek Carr. Go look at who's been his head coach and his head coaches in his career. He went from a Gruden to a Josh McDaniels to a freaking Dennis Allen. Like, talk about just getting screwed in your career with bad coaching. Like, all those guys. I mean, you can say, well, John Gruden used to be great. Yeah, 20 years ago. Like, I mean, that guy totally destroyed that Oakland Raiders. I mean, Las Vegas Raiders organization on his way out. So, yeah, like that's the thing with Derek Carr. It's like when he had Jack Del Rio in his early years, he was if he didn't break his arm or whatever he did break, he almost won an MVP. I mean, like he did have flashes early in his career, but those days are long, long gone. So I'm not gonna let my emotions get the best of me, Chad, which is hard to do. But this is an under team right now. Our favorite team by far. I mean, it's clear to anyone listening to this show. It's got to be the Panthers. It's the most value in a division that, to me and Chad, this division seems like it's up for grabs rather than minus 120, which is what the Falcons are viewed as.
If you're new to this show, every week we will ask you to do something so disgusting that defies all conventional wisdom. Welcome to it. Hold on to the handrail. It's going to be a roller coaster. I promise you, at the end of the year, you're going to feel so satisfied. It's going to be great. Like Simon said, I'm just looking at my notes here. We like the Panthers over 4.5 in this division. We like the Panthers for a little taste, 11-1 to win the division. Everything else, it's like kind of a pass, little tiny
Unders.
bites
We like unders in this
of
division.
unders, little
Yeah.
bites of unders on the Falcons, on the Bucks, and on the New Orleans Saints. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boost with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Simon and I are back next. Episode of The Favorites is on the Action Network YouTube page on Tuesday, 1:45 p.m. Eastern, with our good friend from ESPN, Field Yates. Download us from Spotify, Apple Pods, wherever you get your pods. Rate, review, subscribe, leave us 5 stars, say whatever you want. Feedback is a gift. Until next time, love you.